Hey, welcome back. So, this session's about introducing you to what I see are the three core exercises that you should do that maximize the stability and development of your core whilst minimizing the use of your hip flexors and just starting to prepare your core for the sorts of more advanced exercises that we can then move on to at a later stage. So, there are three exercises that I would like you to undertake over the next few weeks just to try and get your core into some sort of shape. So the first one's what I call reach for the sky sit-ups. Now, when we talk about sit-ups, there's something that's very important that I mentioned briefly in the previous clip, and that was that you should never have your feet held down when you're doing sit-ups, because your feet held down can actually activate your hip flexors and allow you to do the sit-up. And I'll show you a clip shortly that will outline the issues with that and why it is that you should keep right away from having your feet attached. So if that's the case, then what you should try and focus on is trying to just lift your rib cage off the ground, because once you've lifted your rib cage off the ground, you have 100% contracted your abs, and there's no need to then, I can't do it, but there's no need to then sit all the way up. So, why do I say reach for the sky? Because what I don't want the client to try and get their head to their knees or their chest to their knees. That's not much use at all. So what I do is I actually have my clients reach and point their fingers to the sky, and I want you to then try and sit straight up and try and reach up and lift that rib cage right up off the ground and then slowly back down again and repeat. Now, by doing this, you get a fantastic abdominal contraction and you totally have no hip flexor involvement, and you don't put a huge amount of load on your neck by trying to crunch and pull your way up, and it's just a really great exercise to develop good initial core strength. That's exercise one. The second exercise that I'd like you to then undertake is what I'm calling an active plank. Now, most people have seen planks before, and again, the plank is an exercise that people often do quite badly. Planking by itself is a very large hip flexor exercise. It's not just a core exercise. In fact, the hip flexors can be so actively involved in the process that the world record for planking was just broken at the start of 2020, and it was 10 hours, 10 minutes and 10 seconds, of which a huge amount of that would have been the hip flexors being involved trying to hold the body upright during that length of time. So we want to, again, try and minimize the use of the hip flexors during planking, and so we can make a small modification to make the plank highly effective for the core and minimize any other muscles that we don't particularly want involved. So again, what does a plank look like? So the plank exercise is weight on your elbows and on your toes. You have your bum slightly raised. People often have their bums too low and it puts quite a load on their lower back and the hip flexors, which we don't want. So bum slightly raised. And then what I'm going to get you to do, rather than sit here and be in this position for minutes on end, I want you to contract your abdominals, contract your obliques, do your intra-abdominal pressure, your abdominal bracing, and then I want you to try and pull your elbows to your toes. Now, you don't let them move, but by trying to actively pull your elbows to your toes, you massively switch on your obliques and really develop some great strength that is very functional and applied to a bunch of other movements we're going to do later on. So that's the second activity. The great thing about doing an active plank is that you only have to do it for 10 to 15 seconds. If you contract hard enough, you should be just about done after 15 seconds, which is great because then it doesn't take a huge amount of time and you're doing something pretty dynamic whilst you're doing the exercise. The third exercise I like is also that we often train our cores from what I'm going to say is a neutral position into some sort of flexed or bent position. So again, if I look at my sit-ups again, here my body's in a neutral position and I sit up into a flexed position, or I side sit up, or I do whatever. I do a plank, that's a neutral position. We do often get into an extended position. As one of my previous clips, we talked a little bit about the importance of being strong in an extended position. Well, you can do that movement quite well using a Swiss ball. Now, I'm going to put my feet up against the wall because the floor's a bit slippery, but otherwise I'll just have you have your feet just on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to climb onto the Swiss ball, And what I want is, and this is the first stage, which is quite a challenging part of the exercise, is I want you to bend over the ball and fully extend. So I'm now in a very extended position. I've extended my spine, my abs are totally open, and that's going to be my start position. What I want you to do from there is you can either support your hands here, or we're going to do kind of like a reach for the sky exercise on the Swiss ball. I'm just going to support my head. Is you contract your obliques, do your abdominal bracing, and then you just try and lift your chest to the sky and then go all the way down and then fully relax in between. And then contract, abdominal brace, chest to the sky, and then all the way back down. Relax, contract, and then down. Relax, contract, and then down. And repeat. Now, what you find from that exercise is that you start to train some of the deeper core muscles. Your internal obliques, your transverse abdominis starts to get highly activated during that exercise, and you start to train the core from an extended position back into a neutral position, and this certainly gives you a level of protection. If you ever do get caught in some sort of extended position, your core knows how to deal with that. These are the exercises that I'd like you to undertake for a period of time. And we'll add some more as we move along, but these are the 3 core exercises that I have everybody do for starters prior to us then moving on to some more advanced routines.